anxiety, it's also known as the fight or flight response, our evolutionary response to stress and danger. But for many people, anxiety goes far beyond that. The adrenaline starts pumping through the body even when there's no danger present, the body reacting completely out of proportion to the apparent threat. This fear, this anxiety affects millions of Brits at some point in their lives. If you've seen the TV drama Sopranos, you'll know that's how the whole thing starts, with the mafia boss Tony Soprano suddenly overwhelmed by anxiety and needing help. Now, it's not a lot of fun. It's sweaty palms, racing heartbeat, fluttering stomach, or dry mouth. All of that could be all kinds of things. Social occasions become terrifying affairs. And the standard treatment is talking therapies and medication. But the psychiatrist and anxiety expert Dr. Tim Cantiver believes that there is another way to deal with it. You've got to face it head on and try to shake your anxiety by the hand, he says. And he joins me now to explain it further. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
It's brilliant to see you again. 08000 288 291 is the number. Email vine@bbc.co.uk with your questions for Tim. So essentially, this is about winning without fighting it. Is that right?
Exactly. With anxiety, if you try to fight it, it's like trying to fight fog. It just doesn't work. The first thing to do is to accept it. Accept that you have it. Accept yourself. Don't see yourself as being weak, or don't think that you shouldn't have this. Challenge any shame that you have about it. Anxiety is a normal emotion. The problem is that some folks have too much of it in occasions when it really doesn't work, or they have it all the time. So accepting it doesn't mean that you don't do anything about it. It doesn't mean just because it isn't anxiety isn't an illness. Anxiety is fear, an ordinary emotion. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't do anything about it. There's lots that you can do about anxiety. So many of my patients felt that it was impossible to do anything about it because it's just in your personality. You can't change your personality.
But it normally comes on at some point in life, doesn't it, rather than being there the whole time?
Well, yes, you learn anxiety more than it being in your genes. There's a bit of it in your genes, but more of it is learnt in childhood. And then as you meet circumstances...
I disagree with that. I think part of it is to do with being in your head and learning it, but I disagree with that, the fact that it's just something that comes on in your life. I have anxiety, like everybody knows. I have it because of my autism. I have it because I have a mental health issue, and it's just not about the fact that we do have anxiety and we do have to deal with it. It's a stress situation. It's a situation where we can't shake that feeling off. It's a feeling of doom and isolation and not knowing how to deal with it. So this guy who's talking about it just being something that comes on is completely irrelevant. It's not just something that comes on, it's something that's inbuilt, and especially with a morbid condition such as anxiety with autism, it's something that's already there in the symptoms. So let's go.
Which resonate with those difficult times in childhood, you get more of it. But there's plenty that you can do about it, and that's really the whole point about this book. The fact that it's normal to have it and it doesn't make you a weird or wrong person doesn't mean that you can't do anything to combat it. That's not fighting it. That's actually just taking action.
Overcoming Anxiety Without Fighting It is the title of your book, so you've described it exactly. Now, if you don't fight it, what do?
You learn skills. You first of all accept it, and you accept yourself. You accept the physical reactions which happen.
Again, this is another point where I disagree with the gentleman, because you can't just fight it off. You can't just fight the feeling of doom and gloom and stress and emotional upset and something that's in your head controlling you. You can't just fight it off like it's nothing. And he's just trying to make out that anxiety is something that you can get over, and you can't. Anxiety is a feeling. It's not just a thought in your head. It's something that every day comes up for me, and it's something that constantly controls me to a point. So again, I disagree. Let's go.
Instead of going, oh no, I'm getting palpitations. Oh no, I'm getting my bowels are getting disturbed. This is a normal effect of adrenaline. But you can learn techniques to change this. So the first thing is learn a relaxation exercise. Anybody can do that. That doesn't need specific expert treatment.
Again, I disagree with this relaxation technique thing, because not everybody has the inbuilt ability to do a relaxation technique. I know where he's going with it. I know it's a good message that he's trying to convey and teach people, but it's not an automatic thing that people can do. Not a lot of people know how to relax, so therefore the anxiety is more worse than what it would be in a normal neurotypical person. So he needs to understand that. Let's go.
You can learn it through an app. There's loads of them on the App Store. You can learn it through written exercise like you'd find in this book. The key is that you do it every day. You spend half an hour every day learning this exercise, and don't expect it to work. It will be a complete waste of time to begin with, like any skill.
Yeah.
You keep going with it, and within 1 to 3 months, you'll find that it starts to be of some use. If you keep going with it, then eventually you'll find that you get so good at it that you really can control your own anxiety. That is the...
Again, that's where he's wrong. You can't control your own anxiety. You can control it to a point, but when you have a mental health issue or a physical disability or a learning disability, you can't always control anxiety. You are going to have anxiety regardless if you want to control it or not. And the problem is, this is very dangerous what he's telling people. As someone with a disability myself has anxiety, I completely find this is highly dangerous. So let's go.
Racing thoughts and the physical symptoms that go with it.
So the symptoms, classically, you said racing thoughts and disturbed bowels, all kinds. I mean, it could be 20, 30 different symptoms that you've seen as a psychiatrist.
Just about everything. Anxiety can affect almost every part of your body. So many of my patients felt that they had some dreadful, fatal physical illness because of their anxiety.
This is, again, I feel this is really a negative thing that he's saying, because, again, a lot of people don't know the feelings of anxiety. I didn't when I first got diagnosed. I didn't understand what was happening to me. I felt like I was having a heart attack. I had racing thoughts. I had chest pains. I had the shakes. Then I had the sweats. And I didn't understand what was happening to me. So this is, again, very, very misleading.
They didn't. These were symptoms caused by their anxiety. That doesn't mean that it's all in your head, of course. It's real. You know, anxiety, for example, can cause an increase in stomach acid. That can cause a stomach ulcer. Is that all in your head? No, it isn't. It's a hole in your stomach. And do you need to do something about it? Yes, you do. But that's not necessarily meaning that you've got a fatal condition which you can't do anything about.
And misunderstandings too. What would you think are the obvious ones?
Well, I was just thinking this morning about what I was going to say, and I jotted down 15 different misconceptions. I think there's more misconceptions about anxiety than about almost anything else. What's the most important one? Well, probably that you shouldn't be anxious. Well,
again, this is a correct statement that people misassume things. Let's continue.
You know, yes, you should. Everybody is anxious. Anxiety is fear, and fear is sometimes appropriate. What you do need to do is to find a way of controlling it. Now, you know, you may be able to do this by, you know, reading this book, by finding some stuff online, whatever. You may, on the other hand, need to get some treatment for it. The treatments are extremely effective, and that's the second misconception.
Again, this is a really dangerous road he's talking about, that he was basically referring to treatment for anxiety, and the problem is not a lot of people will want treatment or will ask for it because anxiety will rule them out of that. Anxiety will take over the thought processes of being able to be logic and fact like that. Not even I wouldn't ask for help for treatment. Like, I wouldn't go to a stranger and ask for help. So again, you have to be very, very careful when you're offering help to people with anxiety.
Which is, treatments don't work. It's not an illness and therefore it can't be treated. Yes, it can. And they're very effective, whether it be cognitive therapy or mindfulness treatment or even sometimes medications.
Okay, Mark is listening in Canterbury, not your real name. Hi, Mark.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well, thanks. Now, you've had anxiety for quite a while.
Yeah, so my anxiety is started when I was at school and I was getting bullied, and I got very anxious of being attacked by people, which kind of led to paranoia, and I went into a mental hospital, which actually made things worse, as I couldn't really go out unless I had a carer. So I kind of went around the edge of the hospital, desperate to get out, like a caged animal, and I was trying to, have something to keep my mind occupied and distract me from my fears, which culminated in I had a CBT session where she could see I was really struggling and really negative. But she said, because you've had this really difficult situation, that'll give you empathy and you might be able to turn this negative situation into a positive. And the solution actually came when I was watching videos of these kind of caged back-fooded chickens gnawing on their bars and going around the edge of their cage. And I thought, well, that's like me, and I kind of had that kind of passion to do something, and that just kind of, I didn't really think about my anxiety. I just kind of wanted to go wholeheartedly into campaigning with that, which doesn't mean my anxiety is gone, because it's still there. But I was...
Exactly. Our anxiety is still there regardless if people say it's gone or cured or that we can fix it. We still have anxiety in our heads. It's still something we fight every day, whether we fight against it or we're trying to keep it lowered so that we can function every day. That's a really impressive point. I like this guy, Mark, and I think he makes total sense.
Lucky enough to, have CBT. So when I was talking to people, I could imagine like I was in a safe place, or I could, if they were like a bit angry, I could kind of imagine their voice in like a cartoon characters, and that would kind of diffuse it.
That's interesting. Let me ask Tim about that. Are those sort of techniques you'd have talked about before?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so again, this is just about treatments. I'm actually going to forward this on a little bit. So let me forward this on. There we go.
Sort of crowding into your mind for a while, and then put a relaxation exercise or some kind of meditation in its place. That can be very effective.
Then again, meditation doesn't always work for people. That's the problem. You have to be very, very careful offering this kind of treatment to people, because some people just can't get into meditation or in a state of being calm.
You can take it too far, of course. If you just try and avoid your anxiety by always keeping yourself busy with other things, that makes it worse. So it's a balance.
Okay, we're with Dr. Tim Cantifer. He's talking about his book, Overcoming Anxiety Without Fighting It. Love your calls on this 08000 288 291. Is with us, Dr. Tim Cantifer, psychiatrist and thinker. You think about this stuff, I know. We were just saying during the record, my goodness, this is some sort of epidemic of anxiety now, GPs are reporting.
Yes, there is. It's a more anxious world than it used to be, because there's more to be anxious about. There's plenty of it, and I think there's also a particularly sort of British thing, if that's not too naughty to say so. We've got a very punitive culture. If anything goes wrong, then someone has to be punished for it. And we all seem to have taken that on board somewhat. If I get anything wrong, if I'm not perfect, then I should criticise myself. I should somehow be punished. It doesn't work. It never has worked. But when I was at school, I had an old maths master who used to hit us if we got anything wrong. None of my class went on to do a physics or mathematics degree at university, and that's why it put us off. And so it's not efficient to punish yourself, and excessive self-criticism is punishment, and that makes you anxious and it makes you less good at what you do.
Interesting. Paul Smith is in Conway. Hi, Paul.
Hi, Jeremy. Hi, Tim. Hi.
You got it anxious after your mum died, is that right?
Yeah, 2002. She was 59 years old, really close to my mum and my dad. They went on holiday to Torquay, and she complained about indigestion on the Friday. Went to the doctor, and the doctor said, "Don't worry, Margaret, you'll be fine. We'll see you when you get back from your holidays." And then on holiday, she had a massive heart attack and sadly passed away in Torquay Hospital 4 days later. So, we were looking after the dog at home and everything for them, and so I lost Mum. And then about 3 years later, I worked in broadcasting, very much like yourself, Jeremy, not at the heights that you're at, but local radio in Manchester. And anyway, so I was used to broadcasting and talking at conferences and things. And then suddenly I set my own business up after leaving radio. And I was at a conference, and I started to think, I feel a bit edgy here. Where's the exit to the room, And suddenly the heart started going. So I thought, oh, is this a heart attack coming on, you know? And then things like we go on holiday, and this is how amazing it is, how unreal it is. I checked the hotel to see if we were near a pharmacy or something, just in case I needed to get to hospital or a medical centre. That's how bad it got. And I just didn't talk about it. I kept it inside. I was too embarrassed. Even my partner, it was difficult to talk about it because you're in a restaurant and suddenly you get agitated. I have to literally get up out of the seat, walk off and walk around the street and just try and talk to myself, why am I feeling like this? And then basically I had some treatment. I went to see a guy in Warrington in Cheshire, and we had 6 sessions. And basically, Jeremy, it turned me from thinking that it was the enemy. He said, this is your baby inside you saying, hey, Paul, this, you know, I'm feeling anxious. And now I see him as my little friend. He's my friend that sometimes appears, and I go, hey, how are you, mate? You okay? Listen, it's nothing to worry about. Yeah, I focus on my breathing. And then suddenly he starts to relax, and it's amazing how that guy's helped me. He just said, treat it as a friend, don't treat it as...
Absolutely right. This is the best way to treat it. Treat anxiety as your friend rather than the enemy or the devil or anything like that. Anxiety is a feeling, it's a thought, it's a way of trying to control the flight situation, and it's not against you, it's just a feeling that makes you feel temporarily unstable and nauseous and upset and stressed and scared. But again, it's a way to protect you from harm or potential dangers around you. So absolutely right, I agree with this guy 100%.
The enemy, because if you do that and you start blacking it out and blanking it out, I should say, then you start to think, you know, it's fighting you all the time, and you've got to just go, hey, how are you? I'm here, and I know you're there, and it's going to be okay, you know, because it's never hurt me before. Nothing ever really bad has happened.
Actually, Tim, this is exactly what you're saying in your book.
It really is. I mean, I think that's beautifully put. The problem is not fear itself, it's the fear of fear. And it can escalate. You become fearful of the physical reaction that you get when you become fearful. You know, the palpitations and all the rest.
Yes, you do become fearful when you have anxiety, because anxiety takes over your head, it takes over your physical feeling, it takes over your emotional feelings. I have constant anxiety, I'm constantly anxious, I constantly feel nauseous, I constantly feel dizzy, I constantly feel like the world is against me. You know, I know it's in my head and I can control it 90% of the time, but there's times where I don't control it, there's times where I can't control it because of how ill I feel. It's not just something you can get over or cure, and I really don't like the way they're saying about how you can just get over it and fix it. It's ridiculous.
And then that fear, of course, makes the physical reaction worse, which makes you more fearful, and you get the fear of fear of fear, and it can just get out of control like that.
And how much, I mean, will it ever get to a point where you do collapse, or you faint, or you have a heart attack, worst possible case?
No, I mean, anxiety is harmless in the moment. I mean, it's a good idea to get it treated, because if you're
this is absolutely absurd. You can have things like heart attacks and things because of anxiety. I've been in hospital because of anxiety attacks. What this guy is saying is complete and utter trash. It's completely wrong, and Jeremy should be looking into his research more. Jeremy, this guy is talking trash, seriously. I have anxiety. I've had hospital admissions. This is really, really absurd.
Very anxious all your life, then yes, it's going to increase the chances of high blood pressure and stomach problems and various things. But not in the moment. That panic attack which you're having now, where you feel I'm going to collapse and die, it isn't going to happen. This is a normal physical reaction, and it's not dangerous. So dealing with it as a rather unpleasant friend, I think, is a very good way of dealing with it.
Margaret Brown in Nebworth, Hertfordshire, says, I agree wholeheartedly with Tim. Several years ago, I was suffering from severe anxiety. I read books that encouraged me to welcome it in. I faced my anxiety head on, and eventually I overcame it. In the olden days, people took Valium, and there were whole books written about Valium, Valley of the Dolls, and all this stuff.
Yes.
I mean, is that totally been debunked now?
Well, not completely. I mean, you know, nothing is quite as black and white as that. Don't turn to Valium or any of the benzodiazepine tranquilizers as your first port of call. There's
Xanax being another one, yeah.
Xanax being another one, and Librium or...
I absolutely agree with this. Do not turn to drugs for anxiety. Do not turn to tranquilizers. I completely agree with what they're saying here. That's an absolute fact. Do not turn to drugs. Do get help for anxiety. There is help and support out there. It's just knowing how to access it. I completely agree with this.
It's now called chlordiazepoxide, but don't turn to those as your first port of call. There's plenty of other things which you can do. Very occasionally, these drugs are necessary when you're so terrified that you can't do the exercise which your psychologist or therapist has required of you in order to face your anxiety and eventually overcome it. So then, in the short term, sometimes you need these things. More commonly, people who are very severely anxious will take what's called an SSRI antidepressant. These actually make your anxiety a bit worse for the first couple of weeks, but then after that...
No, why offer SSRIs, antidepressants? No, that is a last term resort. We shouldn't even be offering people with anxiety antidepressants. It's not anxiety is not an antidepressant thing. It's a physical emotion, it's a physical feeling, it's a physical illness. People are diagnosed with it all the time. This is completely dangerous.
They make it better, and because they are not highly addictive drugs, you can take them in the longer term in order to help you to get better at the therapies which will provide the long-term answer. So really you use these things if the therapy itself is just too difficult to get started with.
Maxine Smith's in Aberdeen, and you've got arachnophobia, Maxine.
Yes, well, hi, good afternoon, how are you doing?
Hi there.
Good.
Well, thanks. Now, this is fear of spiders, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I've had it all my life. My first sort of big incident of it was when I was, those flying daddy long legs?
Yeah.
I was shut in a room, and it was hovering over the door, so I couldn't get out the door, and I worked myself up so badly that I actually did faint. So that was like the first thing, and then over the years, as I've grown up, I'm now 67 years old. Well, I would panic. I mean, I've literally gone out of a moving car and let it crash into the road because the spider, the sports car I had, came down the top of the window because I just could not be near it. So it was completely irrational. And I've had to live with that fear. And I've tried everything. I even took a course at Bristol Zoo because they offered that, what do they call it, awareness. And that was great for a little while. And the reason I done that was I was doing a voluntary overseas assignment, and they were sending me to South Africa.
Yes, I agree that there's awareness courses to do with anxiety to help you overcome that situation. But again, anxiety is not just an overcoming situation. And I feel that this is a little bit irrelevant in this bit, so I'm going to forward it forward a little bit. Maybe there. There we go.
In which case, you start again, and you'll overcome it again. It does work.
Thank you so much. Great to see you. Dr. Tim Cantifer, whose book is called Overcoming Anxiety Without Fighting It.
Now I have to...
Thank you, Jeremy. First of all, to Northern Ireland, between Larne and Belfast at Ballyrobert.
To Italy before. Never been abroad. My passport's literally like 2 weeks old.
The Michelin-starred chef.
If a ball has hit you in the face and people have refused to apologise, you might be a little cross, and it's a very human reaction. I think what is less human...
Broken down lorry at the traffic lights at Monmouth have caused big queues.
In this hour, anxiety and returning footballs. And this is amazing that the drummer with Queen, Roger Taylor, is 70 today. It's a kind of